being a dad is my favorite thing in the whole world. I love it more than anything. So being able to talk about it is really cool.
Hey, all you rad dads out there.
Yeah, let's get going. The way I always like to start is just by asking, who are you?
Okay. Well, my name's Gary Foster, and I play drums in Mest.
Okay, but there's a couple other things. You're also a dad.
Well, most importantly, I'm a dad and a husband.
Yeah. So, how many kids do you have?
I have one son who's 7, and his name's Roman.
Okay, awesome. So, 7 years old. So, what was going on in your life, Gary, when you became a dad?
Oh man. Well, this is a fun story. So when I became a dad, I was not playing music. I was an operations manager for a large commercial agency, ambulance agency in Rochester, New York, and I was doing that full time, like 100 hours a week, and all while my wife was pregnant. And right about right before my son was born, maybe like 3, 4 weeks before he was born, I had the opportunity to start playing music again and had a real grown up conversation with my wife. And she's like, you should probably get off the ambulance and get back out there and start hitting things again because the ambulance is not for you. So that's where I started from, is kind of restarted my music career right when he was born.
So, what did that look like? Obviously a crazy time, like becoming a parent, no matter what's going on in your life, there's like
Yeah.
so much change, right? But then you're also talking about changing careers. And I will come back to, I want to talk a little bit about your career as a paramedic, but yeah, tell me about that. What did that mean to get back into music? Because my understanding, like you played, like it kind of in the early 2000s, you're really active, right?
Yeah.
And then kind of took a break to go to your pursue your career as a paramedic. But then
Yeah.
how do you get back into music after that? What does that feel like?
Uh, Well, it felt very strange, but also familiar. I was looking at it because I had taken like 7 years off basically. And so when I came back to it, I was looking through it through like a different filter kind of. And, when I was younger, it was, full speed ahead. We were partying and, living like a fun, wild life, but it wasn't. Um, I don't think I was taking it in and I was kind of taking it for granted. But also, like, we were all kids when we were doing this. So, like, you don't think about that stuff then. And it's always like, well, man, if I could have done it now, like I did it then, I would have done it different. And now I am doing it different. And it's a lot more rewarding, I would say, because, having the opportunity to do this as a job and as a career with my best friends, it's like, it still sometimes doesn't make sense to me. It's like, how are we here doing this?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Do you think like having your son, having a child, do you think that helped to change your perspective on that?
It completely changed my perspective on everything. It was like a course correction, without having to make any sacrifices, like, or maybe that's not the right choice of words, but it was a very easy thing to do. It just felt like it was the right choice. Funny enough, or not really funny enough, but prior to me leaving EMS, I had like a string of bad luck with some bad calls and just some things that were happening that made me not like really second guess a lot of things, and like my safety, my health, everything was kind of on the line, and I'd been looking for an out but didn't really have one. So um you know here comes music to save me again,
Yeah.
like it's done so many times in the past. And it just felt like really natural.
Yeah, I love that. Like it's interesting because I had been aware that you kind of pursued a medical career. I'm a pharmacist, so
Oh,
I'm interested in that. That's my day job and I know yeah, like work in the medical field, like depending where you are, can be really stressful. Like you see some things, you experience some things, you see people going through things that are like really, really tough. And I mean, I think being a paramedic is probably one of, and so am I right? Were you a paramedic?
So yeah, so
Or,
well,
or is it
that
EMT or I want to make sure I use the right term.
so in New York State, it used to be like I think five different types of EMS professional that you could be. There was like, but right now it's just two. There's EMTB, which is EMT basic, and EMTP, which is EMT paramedic.
Okay.
So you start off as a basic EMT, and then if you want to become a paramedic, you have to go through that whole thing. And the schooling and the training and everything is, uh, I can't really describe it unless you've been through it. I mean, being a pharmacist, like the amount of work that it goes into that. Just learning simple terminology like prefix and suffix of
Yep.
all terminology. But once you know it, it's like unlocking a puzzle and you can read everything and you understand it. But um, so that's the difference. It's like 100 hours of training versus 2,000 hours of training,
Yeah.
and then all of your clinical stuff in the hospital and ride time and all that.
Well, and like the rubber, okay, I didn't mean to make a analogy there, but with the rubber hitting the road, like is when you actually start practicing, right? And you start responding to calls and you start experiencing all that. So it sounds to me like that was kind of a bit of a I think it's really common in that profession to have burnout, to have to experience trauma, to have lots of stress associated with that. And it sounds to me like that was like a big part of like a couple things coming together at one time. Obviously, this opportunities come up, but also realizing like I can't emotionally deal with this for too much longer. Is that sort of what was going on?
Oh, yeah. So besides being working on the ambulance, I was also an operations officer. So I was doing all the scheduling
Yeah.
and pretty much running the ship for everything during my shift. And it was the work of like five people that they put on us. So the stress was there. And then on top of that, you're working with a bunch of people who are also going through it. So unfortunately, like there's a high rate of suicide. So that happens to
Yeah.
people that are intimately involved with. When you're on the ambulance with somebody, it's like being in an intimate relationship with somebody where like you're trusting them and they're trusting you, and you spend 12 or 24 hours a day with this person for however long. So um and then you get bad calls and all that. And now as a dad, I think I wouldn't be any good use on an ambulance. The thought of having to work on a kid
Yeah.
in an scenario as a dad now is, I think I would lose my mind.
Yeah. It's a totally different like it's really hard to separate your own personal experiences from what's in front of you at the time. I spent a lot of my career. I don't talk a lot about this on the podcast, obviously, but I spent a lot of my career working in addictions work
Yeah.
and working with some people who had really gone through some serious
Hmm.
trauma. Not a lot of kids per se, but a lot of people who um, had children in their lives, had challenges as children. And for sure, that's like, it was crossing my mind every day, like about like, um, how I can set my own child up for success and make sure they have the best life possible and all those things.
Yeah.
And makes you really, like you talked about, like perspective, like totally makes you grateful for the things that you have day to day too, right? And so that's kind of an interesting piece of healthcare. And it's funny, like so I'm not working frontline anymore. I work in kind of more of an administrative role now. And I think that's part of it too. And that's really natural for people as they have kids. So anyway, you've moved out of that
Oh
world
yeah.
now and back into playing music, and that's kind of the full-time thing now.
Right. Yes. So I do Mest full time, and then I have a business at home with a friend. We do construction and stuff.
Oh,
So
cool.
for downtime. So yeah, it's awesome.
Got it. So you're able to, like, you got a child. There's all the things that go along. I mean, your son's 7 years old. That's like prime time for activities starting. School's busy. There's all kinds of stuff happening, right? So that probably does that afford you some flexibility as a parent to kind of, work around that schedule?
It honestly, for as busy as we are doing the band and as much traveling as we do, it gives us so much more time with our kids. I mean, I think it's incredible. When I'm home and I have like a month and there's nothing to do, and it's like I can be full-time dad, I can take over, I can do whatever we want to do, and just completely dive in from the time he's awake to the time he goes to bed. And I mean, I'm incredibly like there moment to moment on tour too, but to really be in there and to know his teachers and to know every little thing that he's doing day to day versus like, oh, what's going on in Roman's world and have to get the story from my wife or him. It's like I know it all. So it's great.
Yeah. It's different too, right? Like I think that's a challenge that a lot of parents have is like being pulled in lots of different directions. And obviously you want to be like involved with your child, but there's other stuff going on. So what I've heard from so many people on this podcast, like we have lots of musicians, is they totally love that ability to like when I'm not on tour, when I'm not like in the studio, I can totally focus, right? You don't even have that like pressure, that like thing in the back of your mind saying, I need to be working on these other things or thinking about other
Right.
things. You can really dive in. So
Mhm.
that's a really unique opportunity, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely different. But Roman, that's all he knows because it's been his whole life. So that's okay. And the other thing that's cool about it is I can also take him on tour with me
Yeah.
and see all these things. And his teachers are really supportive of that. Like if he's going to miss a little bit extra school, but he gets to go to these cities and see what he might be learning about down the road face to face, and touch it. That's, a huge advantage for him.
And those will be like core memories for him too, right? Like especially that at this time, like I think I mean, it's like kids hit like 6 or 7 and it's like they're little people now and they like it's so fun to hang out with them. So
Oh,
yeah, that's awesome. And like you've mentioned like you play in Mest. We had Tony on the show not too long ago and he kind of said the same thing like it's like a big family affair, right? And so you guys really do work to have the families be a part of it to create an environment where the families are coming on tour, where they're at the shows, and you're extending that even to your fans and encouraging them to make it a family thing. So that's really cool.
absolutely. Well, that's I think what we really bonded over. Like obviously musically we're like we see through the same eyes, I think, a lot. But more importantly, I think as dads, I think the first time we really hung out, we spent the whole time talking about our kids. We didn't talk about music at all. It was just like craziness. And at the time, Roman was a baby and London was, a couple years older. So it was great to get perspective from somebody who's already been doing it with a little one to get that advice. And then when we're out on the road, getting that advice, along the way, especially when I started touring again. And I'm like, oh man, now I have to leave a 2 year old at home for the next 2.5 months. What am I going to do? Great having somebody that's already been there that kind of can talk you off that ledge, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah, like how important do you think it is to have that support? Like to be able to, because I think a lot of guys are not that great at that, at like talking openly
Yeah.
about what they're going through and stuff like that. It seems like you've got kind of a special thing with Tony and with the other guys too, like,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're all dads, and I think we're all close enough that we can say anything to each other, whether it's good or bad, and get like it's fair. Um, but I mean, if we're holding it in and there's stuff going on, you have to talk about stuff on the road because carrying it around, it can affect everything and it can ruin somebody's day when you can just talk it out and, get it worked out. Like I had a really good example of this. Last summer, we were on tour and my wife and son were at our friend's house camping and my son went fishing and I hadn't been able to go fishing with him all summer. So I lost my mind. I was like, my friend took my son fishing. Like, I'm never going to forgive myself for this. I was
Yeah.
really about that. And I was talking to Tony and our stage manager Dallas on the RV about it, and like I was crying. I was really upset about it, and they talked me through it, and they're like, that's going to happen, but also Roman gets to experience all this stuff that no other dad or friend is going to be able to show him. Like you're going to be the only one that he's going to be able to experience that stuff with. And wouldn't you be upset if your wife was like, no, you can't do this because dad's not here. So you have to miss out on this experience. And like, I don't want that. So sometimes I have to get out of my own way.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of this stuff. And just, that's kind of the price you have to pay to do this. But um,
Yeah, I mean that's like a hard thing as a dad, I think in general is like I think there's like a lot of pressure too to and maybe not just as a dad, like as a parent in general. Like there's a lot of pressure to like give your kids like all those experiences and to be there for everything. Like, it's like Christmas concert season at school, right? And I was kind of beating myself up about I had like a meeting and I wasn't able to make the kids' Christmas concert. In the end, I was actually able to go to like their dress rehearsal and it was good. But you beat yourself up about those things, right? Because you feel like you just kind of put your look at it through your child's eyes and imagine them looking out into the crowd or sitting on the boat or whatever and like, oh, my dad's not here, like. But I think the reality, or at least something that I've been really thinking about a lot lately, I'm curious what your thoughts are, is like the role of like the whole community in taking care of your child. Like I think once I started to like um appreciate that more, that part started to become a little bit easier for me, that like, you know what, I actually need these people's help
yeah,
to like give my child a good experience, a good upbringing. Like we all need each other's help.
yeah, yeah. Support is everything. It's hard support wise at home because we have a small family, but we do have a large group of friends. And I mean, when we're on tour, it's awesome because the kids, everybody just, it's like everybody's looking out for them and everything. And it makes it much easier. So, my wife and I can hang out and she's not chasing him down. It's like he knows how to be out on the road and stuff. But at home, it can be a challenge for us. Both my parents are deceased. And so, like, having another set of grandparents down and like, it's just like the three of us basically. So it can be hard, but we try and work through it. Community is, community can be everything when you have it, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, totally. um and sometimes it's hard, like, we don't all have as big a community, right? Like you talk about grandparents, not everybody's got grandparents around, not everybody's got like neighbors around that are cool and
Yeah,
and want to help and stuff like that. But I mean even just like your friend groups and stuff too, like you
yeah,
realize how important it is for you, like your kid, but also you, to rely on other
yeah.
people. um Gary, this is the Rad Dad Show. Do you consider yourself a rad dad?
uh I do. I might consider myself the raddest dad, or like this.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm
I
pretty
love
rad.
that.
Yeah, no, for sure, rad dad for sure.
So what does that term mean to you? Like, does that resonate with you? What does that mean for Gary?
uh what it means for me is that oh man, I thought I had a cool witty answer for this, and I don't. I think it just means that being a rad dad means that you're comfortable in your own skin and that you can be yourself, and uh you're comfortable with your kids seeing that, and it kind of shows them who you are. Like I want what I'm doing to I want my son to see that, and like being a rad dad, my son's going to see how I treat my wife and how I approach my work and how I practice drums and how I do this. And that's just, it's like being an upstanding person, like having good morals and, or like being honest. Like that's being a rad dad. Like basically just not being like a bum, you
Yeah.
know, like being there for your kid and encouraging him. And like I mess with my kid I don't know. Can we swear on this
You
show?
can swear. Yep.
So I talk shit to my kid 24 hours a day. He plays baseball,
Yep.
his favorite thing in the world. So I'm messing with him 24 hours a day because baseball, all they do is talk shit to each other and get in each other's heads. So now I've been getting in his head since he's been old enough to understand that. So now with him playing baseball, he does that to these kids, or when they're doing it to him, it doesn't even phase him. It's like right out. Um, and developing his personality to be like get him out of trouble. Like a sense of humor will get
Yep.
either him or in or out of trouble. But I think that that's really important, and I think that's part of being a rad dad.
That's like trust, right? Like that's like your kid feeling totally comfortable with you. We're big on joking around in our house, talking shit too. I make fun of my kids, they make fun of me a
Yeah,
lot. They probably make fun of me more than I make fun of them. But um I do think that's like a big like it's bigger than that, and it's like it's really about them feeling comfortable around you. And that's what you really want, right? It's just that
right.
they like I don't know, like this came up on a recent podcast too, like, the concept of like you can't be friends with your kid, like you got to be their parent. And I'm not sure what I think about that. Like I think there's like some
Yeah,
truth to that. Yes, you still have to be their parent, and that's maybe a different dynamic. Um, but I don't think that has to come at the expense of being their friend. And in fact, like I think if you're not their friend to some degree, that maybe leads them to not trust you,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
Completely, completely. I think that there's like a fine line to walk because you don't want it to be at that point where they're afraid to tell you something because they're afraid of how you're going to react. I I'm always afraid that if I do something now down the line, like 5 years from now, it's going to cause him to like lie to me about stuff or be
yeah,
afraid to tell me this or that. And like, so I'm in my head all the time about, am I doing the right thing, or um, am I parenting, or am I being too much of a friend here? And like, it is really difficult, but you know what? The best advice I ever got from one of my friends was, don't listen to anybody's advice because they don't know what they're talking about. And so sometimes I just have to remind myself of that like it's okay.
yeah, totally. Like there's no I was gonna say there's no like book for this. There's lots of books on parenting, but I think, yeah, most of those you have to take with a grain of salt, and you have to apply it to your own family in the way
You
that works for you, right?
really do.
Yeah. I like that you talked about too, like it really got me thinking. You were talking about like, um, I'm kind of paraphrasing what you said, but like modeling for your son. Like he's watching the way I practice my drums and the way I run my business and the way I like you talked about like kindness and honesty. And I think like that's such a big thing. Your kids are always watching, right? And always
Yeah,
listening. It's amazing actually, you don't think they're watching or listening, and the things that like really resonate with them. Yeah, I agree with you. Like I think that's part of what makes a rad dad is modeling. And well, and the other piece that you talked about is like them seeing who you are. And
yeah,
I think that's a like the true, someone said on the podcast one, I can't remember who it was, but said like my true authentic self. And like I think that's really important too, that like dad isn't like this like uh reserved version of who he really is around me,
yeah.
right? Like he's him.
Right. That's one thing I can tell you is that my son does not see like one side. He sees me for who I am, and it's important. Um, and I'll get more into this, but like when he's out on the road with us, it's important that he sees all of that and sees how we are together and sees us joking around and like having a great time, but then sees us go out on stage and do what we do out there. Um, I never changed that. I'm never like one person here and then it's always that way. And that's the way that it is in Mest in general. It's you get what you get always. And I think that how I approach that, I see that coming out in him now, especially that he's older, like with baseball. He's
Yeah.
playing year round now. Every day after school, we're in the backyard. I'm pitching to him or he's pitching to me and hitting the ball. and he doesn't want to go in. Like we'll set a timer and he's like, no, one more, that wasn't good enough. Can we do one more? I'm not happy with how that one went. He's like, he's resilient and he just wants to get it right. And so whatever he's developing now will really benefit him down the road. But he sees that with me with practicing drums. Like I practice drums every day. I'm always down in the studio, where I have a practice pad in front of the TV in the living room. So he knows like that if you want to be successful or if you want to get better, you have to put the work in. It doesn't just get handed to you. And so he sees like me practicing and working on all this stuff, and then he sees us on stage playing in a room with everybody jumping around having a great time. So he sees like the beginning and the end result and the reward that comes from the hard work. And as like one thing to show him that's cool, because that's a cool experience that not a lot of dads get to do.
Totally. Yeah. Like I think him experiencing the work ethic, right? And seeing what goes into like,
Yeah.
you know, being a musician. I think probably a lot of people think that like, yeah, you just go up there and play and like no big deal. But like you need to, just like anything else, practice and
Yeah.
hone your skills, and you want to put on a good show for people and have them have fun. And so that is really cool that he sort of gets to see it all, right? Like see what you're doing at home and then see the finished product.
Yeah.
What does he think about your band?
He loves it.
Yeah.
He loves the music. Uh, he calls the band his boys,
Yeah.
which is, and they FaceTime with them, and it's really fun. Uh, but yeah, at the shows, he really enjoys it. He'll come over and sit next to me. He'll come sit up on the drum riser next to the floor tom, and he spends a lot of time now chasing guitar picks. He likes to run into the crowd and try and get them if they get thrown in there. But the whole experience for him is pretty neat. Um, Over the summer, what was really cool is he was out for a week with us, and he brought a wiffle ball bat and a bunch of wiffle balls and extra gloves, and was just recruiting people in the venues. Like, all right, they're doing sound check. Why don't you come play baseball with me?
That's awesome.
The last show in St. Louis, we had a full-on wiffle ball game after the show in the venue. It was
That's
hilarious.
incredible.
Yeah. So, and that's a memory. Like he'll never forget that.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. How many kids get to do that, right? So, and has he, like I heard about the stage diving and stuff. Has he done that? Has he taken part in that?
No, he's been curious about it, but no, he saw me do it and he was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that."
Yeah. Talk about stuff that's like a bit intimidating.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I know Tony was talking about like at one point, there was one show, maybe it was, I can't remember if it was on the last tour or something like that, where like there were like 10 kids up on stage or something like
yeah.
that. And it was just absolute insanity, but sounds so fun.
Seeing these kids come up, they either are immediately into it and they're like, "Fuck yeah, we're all about this," or they get pushed up there and they are like a deer in the headlights.
Yep.
And we're pretty good about seeing that right away and be like, "Okay, you can hang out here," and then we'll have like Dallas will walk them off the side of the stage. But most of the time, they just jump right in, and there's so many, like, we're all parents at these shows now. Like the I would say 80% of the people at these shows are parents or aunts or uncles or whatever. So they're so good with these kids. You would never, like, knock on wood, we've never even had close to, "Oh man, we should probably be careful about that" kind of incidents. It's just like seeing these kids just surf all the way to the back and all the way to the front and trying to hold, like, not drop my drumsticks because I'm laughing and smiling because it's rad.
Yeah, it's cool how like I people just like innately like want to protect those kids and make sure they have a good experience, right? You can kind of trust the
Oh
and
yeah.
that's part of what you guys do too, is set everybody up for that and create that
Yep.
environment that's going to be safe too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We want to make sure everybody knows what's happening before little bodies start getting tossed into the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You kind of talked about like you used the term, I think, like becoming a dad being a bit of a course correction, but that it was like perfect for you, like it really fit, it felt right.
Yeah.
Were anything things about becoming a parent that scared you, made you nervous, or were you just sort of like ready to go?
Um, I was ready because we were planning on having a kid, but also I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Um, I was just, I didn't really know. Um, but I knew that I was going to be good at it. Like I felt confident and I knew my wife was going to be an incredible mom, and she is. Like she's superwoman. So yeah, I mean there was a lot that I didn't expect, like um the stress of not sleeping. Like I didn't sleep when I worked on the ambulance, but as a parent, I mean, that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
And like, how important it is as a new parent to be like really thoughtful of your spouse and give them some extra rope there and give them some space and be thoughtful and caring and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you like it is like you have to figure out your own dynamic at home, right? Like because that is a challenge, and I think that like it's like one of the most stressful times that people can have is having a child. There's a lot of, like you said, like not only are you don't know what the hell you're doing, but you're not sleeping.
Yeah.
They can cry and cry and cry. You don't know what to do. That can be stressful. And so like your ability to kind of, if you are in a relationship where there's two parents, not
Yeah.
everybody is, but like
Right.
you have to figure out how to like navigate that and make sure everybody's supported, right?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
really hard. And that really tests a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And just like the band dynamics, like an open line of communication and saying what it is, whether it's good or bad or positive or negative, but like getting it out there so it's not like sitting in there and planting that seed and growing and turning into something. It's important. So it's just another dynamic, and I think that's important too as a dad. uh you know it's so important whether you have a son or a daughter, how your kids see how you interact. If you're married or dating somebody, like how you're treating that person and how they're treating you, and how like the kind of life you're living. Is this a healthy relationship? Like that plants those seeds in how their relationships are going to be in the future. So I remember a lot of that stuff growing up and seeing how my parents treated each other, and they were wonderful to each other, and I was very lucky to see that. And I look at and I treat a lot of the things in my relationship like that I just learned from, learning from my mom and dad.
Yeah, that's like as a kid, that's the only way you learn that stuff, right? Is by like what you see around you.
Yep.
No one tells you like, and you can try and tell your kids like, oh, be nice to that person or whatever. But if they see you walking that walk, like that's so much more powerful.
And that's the only way you can do it. Is like you can talk the game all day, but you have to really lead by example, you know?
That's like I would say that's probably like maybe one of the hardest things for me as a parent. Like one of the things I think about the most that causes me anxiety or stress the most is like the times when you fucking drop the ball in front of your kids, right?
Yeah.
They see you at your worst. They see you raise your voice or they see you stressed or whatever it is. Those are like the times that you like there's like nothing that feels worse than that.
Right. And what's important is how when you get to that end of that rope or that peak stress level, how you handle that and
Yeah.
how, do you freak the fuck out and start throwing stuff and yelling and swearing, or do you just take a deep breath and think about it, and how your reaction is really important. And I think uh, being aware of that as a dad has translated into my regular life in business, and just as a how I treat other people and how I handle things instead of jumping right in like I'm going to look at this through some dad eyes real quick. And it
Yeah.
also uh when you're managing lots of personalities, sometimes I'm like I'm just going to treat this like I'm treating my 2-year-old when he's hungry and overtired. And then when I'm talking to somebody like that, then it just disarms them in my head, and it's a lot easier to deal with. So there are some definite benefits there.
Yeah, totally. Kids, like as much as we teach kids, like they teach us a lot too, right? About how to manage our emotions. Like I think like before you have kids, I think one of the big differences is like you enter a point in your life like after you're like, 18 or whatever, you move out or whatever your situation is where like you're totally accountable to like no one.
Right.
Right? And so you can fly off the handle or you can like do stupid shit or you can do whatever. And really at the end of the day, like no one yeah, you're not accountable to anybody. But once you have a kid in the house, like it or not, you're accountable to that kid.
Yeah.
They're gonna notice the way you behave. They're gonna notice,
Yep.
and they're gonna react to very like instinctually to the way you talk to them and stuff. And so
Yep.
you do actually learn a lot of that stuff. It's funny, like in my job, this is probably lame, but in my job, like I've done like some like coaching training and like leadership training and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And whenever I do that stuff, you read like the 7 habits of highly effective people, like that kind of stuff. It's
Yeah.
like I always think about it in terms of my kids. I'm like, oh yeah, this strategy is something I can use at home, actually, like more than at work. I can actually use this at home. And
Yeah.
there is so much like that your kids, yeah, your family and your kids and your dynamic there teaches you about how to interact with people and be more effective and be better at being a, you know, at being in a relationship, whatever that relationship is.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, and I love that. Like you're obviously very like introspective about modeling for your son, and that's really cool. Like I think that's a lot of what we're trying to kind of I think promote with Rad Dads is again, not that we're perfect, none of us are perfect, but that like, you know, a big first step is just thinking about what you do, just being, thinking critically about what you do and just trying to do the right thing,
Yeah.
right? And like show your kids it's okay to be yourself, um and create that individuality and just let them like flourish, right? You kind of have to create that environment for them.
Yeah. Especially now, like with internet and YouTube,
Yeah.
and you know, I saw this with like my friends' older kids, but like I'm starting to see it now where kids just all get into trends. So they're all into the same thing. And like one popular kid or one kid that's into one thing now, 30 kids are into it. And there's nothing unique or individual about it. They're all like flock. It's like a flock mentality. And it's like if you're comfortable in your own skin, you're not going to care about any of that stuff. Like or feel the need to be a certain way so that you get attention from somebody. It's like it's not about that. It's about you being you, and that's going to attract the kind of people that you want around you, not the people that you think you want around you, or you want in your life. But
Yeah.
that's
I
not what I'm trying to explain to a 7 year old. I'm trying to do it, in a much more watered down way, but that's ultimately the goal, you
yeah,
know.
I think like the biggest thing like what I connected to is like confidence, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe like all the like there's lots of talk about social media and I don't have the answer to that whole problem. I think it is a problem, but I think it's like created this epidemic of like a lack of confidence
Yeah.
in kids. Like it creates an environment where they just feel like they're never living up to what everybody else is doing. Like they're just always seeing these like perfect representations of everything and so it's like I think it's confidence, right? And so again you have to kind of like model that for your kids, like how to be in this world and be confident
Yeah.
and like I don't mean like boasting or whatever, but just being comfortable as yourself.
Your own skin. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and trying to explain that, I mean, it took me, I'm still barely comfortable in my own skin, but like, it takes you so long into adulthood to even feel that way. And some people never feel comfortable in their own skin. Um, so yeah, it's hard, but for me, not having my parents around anymore, I keep them ever present in my mind as a parent because I don't have them to, for my son to see how they are. So I'm trying to take a lot of the things and like all of the qualities that they had and that they were, and that they instilled in me, and like try and deliver that to him, so that not only is he getting what I got, but he's getting to um, kind of get to know them without ever knowing them, because they both passed before he was born. So that is something that's like a major priority in my life, so that he gets to know those people, and get what I got out of him. So
Yeah, he gets to know them through you, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear your parents passed.
Okay.
My mom died in 2020. She had cancer and passed away, and both my kids were born. But my oldest knew her, but my youngest was like one and never really got to know her. And so that's like totally the same way that I approach it. Like, uh, I want to like honor her and
That,
the
yeah.
impact she's had on me and on our family, that
Right.
the kids will never really get to see in person.
You know, I don't know. I hope this comes over or crosses the right way. Um, but like, I'm almost grateful that my son didn't get to know my parents, and then, they moved on, because they were so wonderful. The thought of him dealing with that heartbreak is like, oh, soul crushing.
Yeah.
So, um, as weird as that may sound, sometimes I can look at it like that, and like, okay, at least there's that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, like you have to um, like life is full of those. Like I always talk to the kids about silver linings. Like it's okay that like sometimes something a little bit good comes out of something terrible. Like for sure. And actually, if we don't look for those things, like it's a huge loss, right? And so, um, I feel the same way in a lot of ways, and I totally understand and respect what you're saying. Like I actually can't imagine. My oldest daughter was 4 when my mom passed away, and I think she just was just young enough that she sort of didn't totally get it
Yeah.
at that time. If that happened now, like yeah, I can't even imagine what that would be like. But Gary, it sounds like your parents were like a really positive influence on you.
They were 100% supportive of me, and like pursuing music and just chasing my dreams, and like just do it. Like my dad was an entrepreneur and businessman, and so he knew like that it was all about sticking your neck out and like going out there and doing it for yourself and not relying on anybody else. Like, you go out there and you get it. And that was a big thing for me. um oh, I got sidetracked here and totally forgot where I was going. um
No, that's okay. I was sort of, I mean, I just kind of, um, hear from the way you've been talking that your parents have had a
oh
huge
yeah.
impact on your life, right?
Yeah.
And so your dad sounds like he kind of modeled that entrepreneurial piece. And being in a band, that's like in and of itself, that's an entrepreneurial venture, right? It's your fate is in your hands. To some degree. A lot of it's I've heard you talk on other podcasts and stuff about like a lot of it's luck, but you also have to work hard. And then you've got this business that you're running at home too, right? So obviously you're kind of honoring your dad through
it's
that too.
yeah, I just, I always look like he'd be in the room looking out, and what would he do in this situation? And unfortunately, it sucks, because there's so many times as a parent or as a fucking 44-year-old man, where life comes and hits you, and you're like, I would do anything to call them and ask them for their advice. Like,
Yeah.
it's brutal and soul crushing, and real hard to deal with sometimes. But like, we just dealt with, uh, as a dad, I just had to teach my son all about loss and death. My grandmother just passed away a few days ago, and we had the funeral yesterday, and we knew like eventually it was going to happen. She was 98, so um, who knows if this is going to be the last Christmas or next Christmas, or but like,
Yeah.
time is precious and it's running out. And I spent all summer that I wasn't on tour with my son over with my grandma a couple days a week, hanging out, and he really got to know her, and she really got to know him. and they had this really cool bond. And I feel like that was something that I had to do before she passed away. And I feel like as a dad, that was a win. That was
Mhm.
like a real big win for me. And I can sleep good at night knowing that like I got that. I felt like it was something important for my parents, um, or whatever it is. But like it was a big responsibility as a parent for me and my wife. And he did really well. He handled it great, and he was asking. You know, kids ask the craziest questions. Like they're so innocent and thought out, and like, man, I can't even answer that because it hurts too much to even like tell you this stuff. Like, but they just, I don't know, they're insightful. They pick up all that stuff.
Totally. Yeah, well, yeah, sorry about your grandma too. And yeah, that is important stuff for like to give your kids that experience, but also for your grandma, right? Like that was probably
Yeah.
really special for her as well
Yeah.
that
Oh
you
yeah,
were,
it was. It was. Um, and it was important that he kind of sees the cycle of life, you know, and
yeah,
saw it in a way that it wasn't like some horrible, unexpected, like this was a really great, we could all only be as lucky as she was to go that way.
totally.
So it was a great experience to kind of teach him into that or lead him into that life lesson, I guess.
Yeah, kids don't realize it is tough because kids don't realize like that life does come to an end at some point, right? But like what a great example for your child that like she lived to 98. Like
Yeah.
that's a huge full life. Um and like you said, I mean, I don't know, like did you kind of start to broach that topic with him like before,
Um,
before like the concept that like she may not live forever. Like I'm curious. I don't think this has ever really come up on this show, and it's like I don't think anybody. Again, there's no guidebook for how to talk to your kids about
yeah.
loss, right?
Well, we weren't really thinking about it because life is life and we're just busy and it's crazy. But um when she started to like decline and you know, over the past couple of weeks, we were talking to him about that and uh just kind of explaining it to him like slowly, and he would ask here and there. But then when I got the call to like go up to the hospital and visit and kind of say goodbye, that kind of thing, I explained that all to him, and he was like, "Well, why are you sad?" I'm like, "Because I'm not going to see her anymore, and you're not going to see her anymore." And he's like, "But we have pictures, and she's going to go see your mom and dad." And like just out of nowhere, like you say, kids say, like just there's no filter. I mean, talk about like trying to hold it together when he said that. I was
Totally.
like, but he gets it. Like in his little mind, he's like, well, she's not here, but we can smile and look at pictures of her and know that she's doing this. And I'm like, okay, like little wise man hidden in the
Yeah,
body. Like I gotta take a lesson from you here on this.
yeah.
But
That's 7-year-olds can sometimes be, yeah, be pretty mature, right? In the way they see things.
yeah,
Yeah, like I mean, thanks for sharing. This is really personal stuff, so I totally appreciate you sharing it. But it is stuff we go through as parents, and you know, like you and I have both lost parents, and that's a really tough thing to go through. But I think you know what I've taken from this conversation is like I think it is important to honor them in the way that we can, and just like you're talking about now, like oh, we can. Your son said like we can look at pictures and stuff. That's something I don't know if you guys do that. We do that quite a bit with my
yeah,
mom. We sort of like I don't know if maybe this is selfish. Like I'm just like I don't want my kids to not think about her or not know
yeah,
she was there, or not know how important she was. So we every once in a while it's just like, oh, let's look at some pictures of Nana and
yeah,
we do that just to like make sure that we're kind of keeping that memory alive. And also, you know, my daughter she saw my mom when she was like she was quite sick. Like she was sick and then she had like treatment and that makes you look different as
right,
and so
right,
I like want to get that image out of her mind that like no actually she was like totally like she wasn't always sick like the way you knew her, right? And so yeah, I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with all that stuff, but I think, you know, we do encounter loss in our lives and I think we need to teach our kids that like we need to honor those people, and it's an opportunity to honor them. And when you feel sad, like that's actually just an expression of how much you love them, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Well, let's maybe shift gears a little bit to, maybe something a little bit more on a bit more of a positive note. But I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about what's come up for Mest, anything else that's going on for you, Gary. I know that so you guys put out Youth last
Yeah.
year, which was
Yeah.
killer. I love the record, love it so much. And it's done super well too, which is really exciting. I know like it was kind of coming on the heels of one of those classic pandemic releases that like came out right before the pandemic and then just like everything shut down. And so
Don't
that was like a big opportunity for you guys to come out swinging, right?
Yeah, I am so proud of that record.
Hmm.
We worked so hard on it. It was so much fun to make, and I can't wait for the next installment and for you guys to hear the music that's coming out on that. And yeah, I mean, I can't even tell you. It's uh, of all the recording, it's my favorite drumming that I've ever done. It's the most fun I've ever had, and the most work I put into something. Like we really, really went through all that music with a fine tooth comb and making sure that like everything we wanted and parts and fills and sounds and everything was exactly what we wanted to do. We didn't want to have to listen to it and not be like, this is the best fucking thing we've ever put out. This is awesome. What what is this? It's crazy. So I think we're without sounding like a fucking egotistical asshole, because I'm not. I'm very proud of it. And Tony sang his ass off on it. Like their songs are great.
Yeah,
And
they are.
the thing that gets me is like this is the first recording that I've done with Mest, and listening to those records and like when we're playing and you see the crowd and you're listening to the crowd sing all the classics, but now they're singing Hate You Sober just as loud as they're singing Drawing Board. It blows my mind.
Yeah.
Tony will say the same thing. Like it's great. Like what a great feeling. And it's cool. I know that the fans really are behind it, and that makes me love it even more.
Yeah, it's cool as a band that's been active for as long as Mest has been to put out a record and have songs become part of your classic songs.
Yeah.
Songs on the new record are kind of like classic Mest songs, right? So that's fucking cool.
And it's weird because like bands that are around, it's like we have a new record coming out, and it's like, yeah, but you guys have been around forever, and we know these songs, and like you hear it, and people roll their eyes sometimes. It's like, and then people hear this stuff, and they're like, what the fuck? And
Yeah.
it's great. It's great. I like that we're it stands out and amongst that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, whatever. Moving on. Um, it's
Yeah, it holds up with all the classic stuff, all the stuff that people are coming, longtime fans are coming to hear. It
right.
holds up with all that stuff. It's
Yeah.
right up there too.
Well, thank
Um, yeah, I love the record so much. And yeah, Tony mentioned on the podcast that you like there's more recording that's been done. There's more stuff coming.
you.
You guys have been working on videos. Like I love that like the ethos of Mess too. Like to come back to that like family vibe. Like you
Hmm.
guys work hard. You work hard together. Like I loved seeing like well, I love seeing the shots of like, your families like joining you guys on tour, but even like, Tony shared some shots of like packing up orders and shit like that. Like I love that. And I think that's something that fans really love too. Like seeing that like this is your passion too, right? That comes through on the record, that comes through in all your socials, and it definitely comes through at your shows. So I love that.
Well, there's a direct connection between us and the fans. There isn't like
Yeah.
any another person or another middle ground to get to us. And the all of our mentality with Mest is that it's a DIY mentality. We've all done this for so long that we know what we want and we know how we want to do it. So why would we bring anybody else in to complicate things when we can take the vision that's in our mind and put it on, make it really happen. Like Tony and I brainstorm like music video ideas, and then we just make it happen and we just create stuff. And that is one of the most fun things on top of, performing and playing music and everything, is like coming up with these ideas. And it's like we're sitting on the back patio having drinks talking about what we're going to do, to here's a finished product, and it came out even better than we saw it in our heads, but here it is. And now when I watch these videos, I think, oh, I remember when I thought about that idea when I was in the shower, or when we were sitting in his backyard talking about this. So it's cool.
Yeah. What's next for Mest in 2025? So you guys, I know you have a spring tour that's been announced with, I
Yeah.
think, Teenage Bottlerocket, right?
So yes. So end of March we go to Japan with Strung Out, which is going to be awesome. We were in Japan last year, so I cannot wait to go back. Uh, because I think that's the most magical place in the world. So we're doing Japan with Strung Out, and then we fly right from Japan to uh, Denver, and we start that tour with Teenage Bottlerocket, which is going to be rad. It's going to be so much fun. I'm a little bit nervous about flying for like 20 hours and then being at elevation for 3 days playing shows, but I can cross that off the list of shit that I never wanted to do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's the life, right?
Yeah.
Um, awesome. And any plans for music or anything else happening yet, or
Um,
that's all still, we're still working
yeah.
on that
So
stuff?
there's some other things mess wise that are in the works that, unless I have concrete answers, I'm not going to disclose that, but we're
Okay.
lots of stuff coming up. And then I have a side business that will be doing more music stuff in 2025 as well. More of like construction side of things, like building recording studios,
Oh,
and
cool.
um, all sorts of like logistical stuff that are music related that we've kind of wanted to pursue, just because it looks like it'll be fun, something to do.
Yeah.
So,
Where can people find you online, Gary, if they want to connect
um,
with you?
so the best way to get a hold of me or to just check anything out is Instagram, and that would be Gary underscore Smash. And then I believe Instagram for Mest is the official Mest. And those are the two best ways to find drumming content and upcoming tour dates and new music releases and all that fun stuff. So,
Awesome, man.
uh,
Yeah, I love your band. I love your drumming.
thank,
I'm a guitar player, but I'm a hobbyist drummer, and so I love like following all your drum stuff too.
thank you.
And I'm just super stoked to have the opportunity to talk to you. Like you're a really thoughtful dad, and I appreciate your thoughts on how to best raise your child. And I think it's so important for people to have the ability to hear that too. Like there's a lot of people out there that listen to our show that might not have, that best friend or whatever that they can talk openly with, that they can share their experiences with. And so like people like you being on the show, it's really meaningful and is really helpful for people and certainly for me. And so I really appreciate your time and want to thank you for being here.
Well,
Um,
thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about my favorite job and favorite thing that I've ever gotten to do, which is being a dad. I think that's the only thing that's cooler than playing drums for a living is being a dad. And I'm certainly not perfect, but if I could give anybody advice, especially new dads or dads that are struggling, is give yourself a hug and give yourself some space and remind yourself that this is hard. You're certainly not perfect, and you got to give yourself some grace sometimes. Um, because it's you don't know the answers, at least that's my advice is where I'm coming from.
yeah, there's a lot of pressure out there to be perfect, right?
There
And
is.
none of us are. Like, let's put it
Yeah,
out there on the table. None of us are perfect. So we all fuck up sometimes. We all struggle and yeah, just kind of know you're not alone, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's
Thanks, Gary. I really appreciate it, man. This has been super
thank
fun. Great getting
well,
to know you.
good to meet you, and I look forward to talking in the future.
Yeah, sounds good, man.